So I often talk about vows, narratives, things along those lines, systems of oppression. And recently, Stranger Things came out. It came out last week. And they had 1 through 4. They're going to have 4 through 8. Now, what was interesting is it really validates my point. So the last episode, number 4, Vector, who's supposed to be the evil dude, evil guy, comes up to Will, and he took Will as a child. We're going to go through this because this is very, very powerful to understand how vows happen. Okay? Vector took Will as a small child, and he took Will because he saw that Will was weak. Children are weak. Children have no power. That comes from the narrative. Children should be seen but not heard. Children are not really listened to when they tell you things. He knew that because when he was a child, he was not really listened to. That is a common societal narrative. We all know that. A child tells us things and we go, shh, mom's talking right now. Or shh, dad's talking right now. Or you're interrupting, you're being rude. Or, oh, that's silly. We don't listen to children's wisdom. We don't really acknowledge them. Children should be seen but not heard. Children are weak. Children aren't considered valid. This is a narrative. So Vector steals Will as a child. And this is a few episodes earlier when you start the last 4 of this, I think it's season 5. And there's this thing over his mouth and he's like connecting into Will. Well, Will comes back and he finds out he's connected with Vector and he's seeing these, oh, I can't remember what they're called, but they look like flower men and they open up and they're these things that can't be defeated. And they're killing people and attacking them, and Will is directly connected to them. So Vector walks up to Will and he tells him, you're weak. That's why I chose you. And that you were my first testing to make sure that children were really weak. And that's why I'm going after the children. And you can't defeat me because you're weak. So he was basically even telling Will as a teenager, which is still considered somewhat of a child or a young person, you're weak. Playing into that narrative. Well, that pissed Will off. And in that moment, Will made a vow. Because in that moment, all of a sudden, you saw these evil, like flower, whatever they're called. I can't remember what they're called at this moment. That were Vector's minions or demons or whatever you want to call them, that were going after the town. All of a sudden, Will that was connected to them had power over them and just broke them from the inside. And they no longer were able to go after people. So now why is this important? Because this is exactly what I'm talking about. When we have narratives that are not positive narratives, and we've been told them over and over and over again, and we believe them. And then someone comes in and says, yes, this is the narrative, and this is why I chose you, or this is why I did what I did to you. A thought that comes in, and then emotion comes in. A feeling comes with that. And the thought and the feeling come together, they collide, and they create that emotion, and that vow happens, and that vow changes the trajectory of things. So Vector planted the thought, you're weak according to this narrative. Will had a feeling reaction to it. That feeling and that thought collided. They added together to create an emotion that created a reaction that sent Will down a whole nother path. Now, why is this important? And is this positive or is it negative? Well, it depends. You see, these happen usually in our formative years, and it usually happens around something that's negative. And this is what usually happens to develop a toxic personality. You see, I don't believe people are born toxic. What I do believe is that there are narratives out there that impact someone, and they live that narrative, and they live that narrative. And a thought or a realization comes in, and then a feeling comes in with that. And they add them to, the two are added together, and then an emotion drives it. Now, I don't know what's going to happen this season, and that's not what the point is. The point is that's a really good example of how vows are made. And what happens when it turns into an emotion, the driving force. And this is what I'm writing about in my book. And then what happens is it impacts our care languages, our love languages, and our belonging languages, and how we communicate, how we react, how we respond, how we navigate. It impacts how we navigate and communicate and connect, because it can change the trajectory of where we're going. It can change our personality. It changes our interpretation of the world, and then it will change our behavior. It doesn't change how we process. It changes our interpretation, and it changes our behavior. Now, if you'd like to learn more about this book, if you'd like to learn more about what I'm doing, how this all works, you can always look at my website, The Needs Languages. This impacts communication, conflict resolution. It impacts so many things. But it's very fascinating. Now, what's really cool about this is when you understand what societal or family or any of those things, any of those narratives are, you can then start to look within yourself. And you can change your own trajectory, your own path. You can go back and you can heal things. And that's the coolest thing, because you know you're not stuck. And you know what? How you figure that out? Well, there's more to that. And there's ways to figure that out. So, and I can always talk about that if you'd ever want to know. So on that note, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.